a lot of evidence suggests that the regulations don't actually work even when they are applied. The whole thing about reserve requirements, when a bank comes to the central bank and says, look, we've created too much money and now we need some money at the central bank to pay the other banks that that the money has gone to. If the central bank says we're not going to give you anything more because you've exceeded your reserve requirement, then this bank becomes unable to pay the next one. That bank is then unable to pay another bank, and the entire system can seize up and stop working, within the space of a day. So generally, whatever the reserve requirement is, if a bank comes to the central bank and says we need more money, they more or less have to say yes. So reserve requirements don't really work as a limit on how much the money supply can expand. Now the thing about the university is, in universities it's still taught that the central bank can say, okay, the reserve requirement is 10%, therefore for every 10 kroners, the banking system can only create 100 kroners. And actually, this other book that we wrote, I'm afraid I only have one copy, but this is basically a textbook for the UK monetary system. And on the back we have David Miles, who's a member of the Monetary Policy Committee at the Bank of England, saying the way monetary economics and banking is taught in maybe most universities is very misleading. What this book does is help explain how the mechanics of the system work. So this is a book that we put together with some colleagues to say that the common understanding of how you restrict this money creation actually is completely out of date. And in terms of how it works under the euro system, I mean, I wouldn't advise going into the euro right now. It's another currency that has failed, like most other currencies. But in that system, you would need to have some kind of central money creation committee who would decide how much to increase the money by across the economy, and then hopefully they would share it out equally between the countries. But yeah, I probably wouldn't advise that. And in terms of why do we need to be so radical? The reform that we are suggesting has actually already been done in the UK in 1844. And at that time, banks had the power to create paper money, and they overused this power. They created too much paper money, and that caused a financial crisis. So the government stepped in. It was the Conservative government of the day actually stepped in and said, from this point on, banks will not be allowed to issue their own paper money. Only the central bank will be able to issue paper money. But what they did then, in 1844, was they didn't imagine electricity and electronic payments and debit cards and internet banking. So now we have a situation where 97% of all the money is electronic, and the law has never been updated to take account of electronic money. So if it's a problem to have banks printing their own paper money, why is it okay to have them printing their own electronic money? On a practical basis, there's no reason why you can't do it in one country alone. The way the international monetary system works in terms of how different currencies are exchanged, this doesn't impact that at all. And then really there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. I mean, I think it's important to recognise the situation that you're in the moment in Iceland. You're relying on 4 banks that have already failed to create your money supply and to decide where in the economy that money should be invested in. And it's the same in the UK. The system failed in the UK, it failed in the US, it failed in Iceland. In China, the level of debt is higher than it ever has been. House prices are as unaffordable as they ever have been. And also I think the level of non-performing loans, so bad loans in the banking system in China, is going the same way. So for a while people were saying, yeah, but China's done this the right way. They've allowed the money supply to expand and it's boosted the Chinese economy. It's going to crash in a year or two. They've done exactly the same as we have done with our economies, but they're just 2 years behind.